Welcome to Lesson 2 for Hebrew 1 and 2, Blue Ridge Institute, Old Testament 502-504. In this particular lesson, we'll be looking at syllables and how they're divided, as well as the relationship between vowels and syllables, and most importantly, we'll be debating why all of this is important at all. So let's dive in. As we jump into Hebrew syllables, we need to talk about the Dagesh forte. We have already seen the Dagesh line, which is the dot that is found in a Bagad Kafat letter that gives it that plosive or hard pronunciation, bait instead of vait. The dot that is seen in a non-Bagad Kafat letter will be a Dagesh forte, although it is important to note that a Dagesh forte can also occur in a Bagad Kafat letter. But since a Dagesh line will only be found in a Bagad Kafat letter, anytime we see a Dagesh in a non-Bagad Kafat letter, it must be a Dagesh forte. It must double the letter. Occasionally, we'll need to double a Bagad Kafat letter, in which case we'll put a Dagesh forte in the Bagad Kafat letter, which has the same effect in terms of pronunciation, giving the hard plosive pronunciation of the Bagad Kafat letter, but also doubling it. The unanswered question, of course, is why do we need to double a consonant? Well, the answer to that is vowels. Vowels are why we need to double consonants. One of the basic rules related to Hebrew syllables and vowels is that short vowels prefer closed syllables. Long vowels prefer open syllables. The same is actually true in English. We have closed syllables that take short vowels, such as sin and bat. When we talk about closed syllables, what we mean is that we start with a consonant, we have a vowel, we close with a consonant. Hebrew syllables will always start with a consonant. Even if that consonant is silent, such as aleph or ayin, the syllable still technically begins with a consonant. We will not begin with a vowel. We will close the syllable with another consonant after the vowel, keeping in mind that a syllable in Hebrew can only have one vowel. So a closed syllable will be consonant, vowel, consonant. In the English example, we have consonant S, a vowel I, and a consonant N to give us sin. The same with bat, the consonant B, the vowel A, the consonant T, closed, short vowel, bat. In an open example, though, we only have a consonant and a vowel. There is no final consonant closing the syllable. In this instance, we have a long vowel. So in the word baby, we have a long A, not babby, but baby. Let's look now at a Hebrew example. Here we have the word hashamayim, the heavens. You will notice that we have a hey plus a patak, a shin, although it's not marked with the dot to the right of the shin, but a shin with a kametz, a mem with a patak, yod with a hirik, and a mem. The question is, how would we divide this? Keeping in mind, again, that syllables always start with consonants. Every consonant goes with a vowel. Every syllable has exactly one vowel. This word is actually a very simple word to divide because of that rule that there is only one vowel per syllable. So every time we see a second vowel, we know that we have a new syllable. So hey plus patak must be one syllable. Shin plus kametz must be another syllable. Mem plus patak must be a third syllable. And then we have the final syllable, yod, hirik, mem. Although you'll notice that there is a problem here in this particular word. We have two open syllables, one at the beginning, hey plus a patak, and then the mem plus the patak, both highlighted in yellow, that have short vowels. Again, the expected pattern and the preference that short vowels have is to be in closed syllables. These are both open syllables. The shin plus the kametz is in keeping with the normal preference because long vowels like open syllables, and this is a open syllable, shin, kametz, consonant, vowel. The hey plus the patak and the mem plus the patak, though, are out of accord with the typical pattern of Hebrew. This creates a problem. This vowel underneath the hey, the patak, does not like being in this situation. And in normal Hebrew, when a vowel does not like the situation that it is in, it will simply leave. So in order to keep the patak, we have to do something. We have to close this syllable. How exactly are we going to close this first syllable? Well, we're simply going to add a shin, a second consonant. This will close the first syllable, so that the first syllable will now be hey plus a patak plus a shin, and the second syllable will be shin plus a kametz. A closed syllable will be the first syllable with the short vowel, and the second syllable will be an open syllable with the long vowel. Of course, the Masoretes did not want to actually change the consonantal text, so rather than adding an additional shin, they simply doubled the shin that was in the text. And this they did by adding a Dagesh forte, so that this is read as though there are two shins here, hey plus patak plus shin, shin plus kametz. And we know this because of the dot, the Dagesh forte. There are two shins. We have implicitly doubled the letter to close the previous syllable and yet still leave the second syllable open. Now all the vowels are happy and all the vowels will remain. This allows the word to remain hashamayim, allowing us to keep the pronunciation of the short A as distinct as it was back in the day when this was originally written, and then to keep that longer A as the second syllable under the shin. This makes everybody happy and allows us to preserve the consonantal text while also keeping the vowels in place. What we have just done is really no different than what we do in English. From the word sin, we add ing, but it's not signing, S-I-N-I-N-G, but sinning, S-I-N, and then we double the N, N-I-N-G. That's the only way to preserve the short vowel. The same with bat. Bat becomes batting, but we add two T's so that we have B-A-T-T-I-N-G. The difference is in English we actually write the second letter, but in Hebrew we don't write the second consonant. We simply add a Dagesh forte. So hey plus the patak plus a Dagesh forte is the same as hey plus a patak plus a shin, and then shin kametz. Again, this allows us to double the consonant and maintain our short vowels. Of course, you may be asking, but what about the patak under the mem? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment when we talk about accents. Because the mem has the accent, hashamayim, this mem is allowed to keep its short vowel, but more on that in just a moment. Just one more quick reminder on the Dagesh forte. The Dagesh in the shin in this first example, hashamayim, is a Dagesh forte. This is because this is a non-Gabad Kafat letter, so it must be a Dagesh forte. Dagesh lines only show up in Begad Kafat letters. However, the second word, habamayim, has a Begad Kafat letter, a bait. However, the Dagesh in the bait, even though it's a Begad Kafat letter, is a Dagesh forte, because it is actually doubling the bait. It gives it a hard pronunciation, but it is not a Dagesh line only giving it a hard pronunciation. Instead, it is actually doubling the bait because the vowel underneath the hey is a short vowel, and we need the second bait in order to close out that previous syllable. The way that you can verify whether a Begad Kafat letter has a Dagesh line or a Dagesh forte is to look at the previous vowel. If the previous vowel is a short vowel, then the Dagesh is a Dagesh forte. It's doubling the Begad Kafat letter. If, however, there is no short vowel prior to the Begad Kafat letter, or if it's a long vowel, then the Dagesh in the Begad Kafat letter will be a Dagesh line. It's the start of a new syllable, and it is simply giving that plosive pronunciation so that you know how to pronounce the letter. So again, Dagesh forte can show up in a Begad Kafat letter, as can a Dagesh line, and the previous vowel will be the key to tell us what exactly is going on. The nagging question in the midst of all this is, why? Why is it necessary to keep a short vowel? We said it was the purpose of the Dagesh forte to double a consonant so that one of the consonants could close out the previous syllable. But why? Why do we need to close that previous syllable in order to keep a short vowel? Well, the answer has to do with form and translation. There are multiple forms in Hebrew that require a short vowel for identification. For instance, the hey plus the patak here is the definite article. It means the, and it is affixed to the front of words. However, if it were to lose the patak, we wouldn't know what the form is, because there are several other forms that also put a hey on the front of a word. So by having the patak, we know this is the definite article, and the only way to keep the patak is to put a dagesh in the letter following the patak. The same with the vav here, which is a special type of vav that takes a patak. Typically, we would find vav with shva, which you'll learn at the end of this lesson. It looks like two dots underneath a vav, but here we have vav plus patak, which tells us that we need to translate the verb in a particular way. Beyond these examples, there are other examples where we have words that require short vowels in their particular form to be able to translate them appropriately into English. This is why we need the Dagesh, to be able to double the letter, to close the syllable, to keep the short vowel so that we can identify what word we're dealing with, what letter we're dealing with within a word, and how both should be translated into English. In essence, then, we have two types of syllables, closed and open, but we can close a syllable with a Dagesh forte, so that we may have a closed syllable followed by an open syllable, or a closed syllable followed by another closed syllable, but the syllable is closed using a Dagesh forte. Keep in mind, then, a summary of our rules. We always start a syllable with a consonant, even a quiet one, like ayin or aleph. Every consonant goes with a vowel, either the vowel before or the vowel after the consonant. Each syllable has only one vowel. Long vowels prefer open syllables, like the bay and baby. Short vowels like closed syllables, like sin in sinning. Dagesh forte allows us to double that consonant to close the syllable. Of course, gutturals have to come along and ruin everything, because gutturals will not take Dagesh. Every once in a while we'll find a Dagesh in a resh, and every once in a while we will find, as an exception to the rule, a Dagesh in a guttural. But most of the time, almost never will we see this. Instead, when they reject the Dagesh that we would expect, they force the vowel before them to lengthen, because again, we can't have a short vowel in an open syllable. So in the word below, we have haaretz, which means the earth. The hey should have a patak, and there should be a dagesh in the aleph. That is the sign of the definite article, meaning the. But aleph will not take a dagesh. Since we have to maintain our preference of syllables and vowels, we change the patak to a kametz. This, as I said earlier, is what happens when we can't double a consonant. The vowel in question will leave. In this case, the vowel has left and been replaced by a kametz. Or, as we sometimes say, it has lengthened from a patak, which is a short a, to a kametz, which is a long a. But this is the result of not being able to use the dagesh to double the letter and maintain that short vowel in a closed syllable. It is important to be able to identify the name of a particular accent. Typically, Hebrew words are accented on the last syllable or the second to last syllable, and very rarely on the third to last syllable. But we often refer to the other syllables around the accent syllable or around what we sometimes call the tone syllable. It has the tone, the accent, by other particular names, because the vowels will behave differently around the accent and within the accent syllable. So the syllable itself that has the accent is called the tonic syllable. It has the tone. Hallelujah. Lu is tonic. The preceding syllable before lu is pre-tonic because it comes pre, just before lu. Hallelujah. Le is the pre-tonic syllable. Before the pre-tonic syllable, So 2 before the tonic syllable is the pro-pre-tonic syllable. Pro meaning before, pre meaning before, tonic meaning accent. So the pro-pre-tonic in this word is hal. Hal is pro-pre-tonic, le is pre-tonic, lu is tonic. This will make sense in just a moment, but you need to know these terms so that you can identify the proper syllable. We have mentioned that short vowels prefer closed syllables and that long vowels prefer open syllables. However, when we give the accent to a particular syllable, when we make it the tone syllable, the preference actually changes, and short vowels will prefer open tonic syllables, and long vowels will prefer closed tonic syllables. In other words, the opposite preference. So you'll notice in the word at the bottom of the page, hashamayim, that we have talked about the patak under the hey. It remains because of the dagesh in the shin. The patak underneath the mem remains because this is the accent syllable, and that is indicated by that little caret symbol above the mem. The caret symbol is an English symbol. We use it in our textbooks. We use it when we're writing to indicate the tone syllable, because the Hebrew accent marks are not necessarily dependent upon the word as much as they're dependent upon their usage in the sentence. So while you will always see an accent mark above the mem in this particular word, what that accent mark looks like will change depending on where the word is in the sentence. You don't have to worry about that at this point. That will take place in later classes. For now, you just simply need to know that that little caret symbol indicates that this is the tone syllable, and as the tone syllable, it is allowed to keep its short vowel underneath the mem. Long vowels like to be next to the accent, next to the tonic syllable in the pre-tonic place. So shin has a kametz underneath it, which is a long vowel. That long vowel enjoys being next to the mem with the patak and the accent. If the accent were to shift, if for instance it were to shift to the end of the sentence onto the yod hirik mem, the kametz underneath the shin, because it is now in the pro-pretonic place, would actually reduce and become either a patak or could reduce all the way to shwa, which we will introduce on the next slide. For now, suffice to say that long vowels like to be next to the accent syllable, and short and long vowels will change their preference when they are in the accent syllable.
One final piece of the puzzle to introduce here again is the schwa, or again, if you want to use the German-influenced pronunciation with the W's as V's, the schwa. You may also prefer the redneck pronunciation of Shewa, but then everyone will make fun of you for the rest of your life. Almost every consonant, when opening or closing a syllable in Hebrew, will have some mark, unless it's the last letter at the end of the word, where a mark is not necessary. Thus, when a letter is closing the previous vowel, that letter will still receive a mark, and the mark that it receives is called a schwa, the colon double dot thing here under the C representing consonant. Sometimes a syllable is only a consonant and a schwa, in which case the schwa is pronounced as sort of a half syllable, kind of a sound. We do this in English with words like attain or again, rather than attain or again. In fact, in an English dictionary, you will see lots of schwas, although we don't use the colon symbol in English, but an upside down E. So how do you know when to pronounce schwa and when not to? Basically, you do not pronounce the sound of schwa when the schwa is closing a syllable. But to make it even easier, here are 4 quick rules. Rule A. If the schwa comes after a long, unaccented vowel, you need to pronounce the schwa. So this is sharatsu. The word out here to the far right has no schwa. I put this word out here to highlight the little line under the hey next to the kametz. This is called a metheg. It's a little helper so that you know that this is a kametz. Often, but sadly not always, you will find a metheg with the kametz so that you know for sure that this is a kametz and not a kametz hatuf. Because in our example word, sharatsu, if the kametz under sha were a kametz hatuf, this would be shortsu. There is no metheg here to help us, We just have to know that sharatsu is such a common form of the verb, as you'll learn later, that you don't really need the metheg in this case. The long komets means that the schwa under the resh is pronounced as sharatsu. Rule B. Always pronounce the schwa if it is at the beginning of the word, or in my example here, the beginning of the Bible, since this is the first word of Genesis. Ba, pronouncing the schwa, ba-re-sheet, in the beginning. Rule C. Always pronounce schwa if it is in the second of two consecutive schwas. This is u mishpate, and the judgments of. The schwa under the shin closes the short vowel hirik under the mem, and so is not produced and pronounced. The second schwa is pronounced, producing the sound, according to the rule, since it is the second schwa, p. Finally, Rule D. Pronounce the schwa if it is under a dagesh forte. Va, ha, m, lakim. The mem has a dagesh forte, so pronounce the schwa. We know this is not a dagesh line because mem is not a bagad kafat letter. Often, those schwas under a dagesh line will also be pronounced, such as ba-re-sheet in Rule C. But a schwa under a dagesh forte is always pronounced. Remember our skinum levi from earlier? A skinum levi may drop the dagesh forte after a vocal schwa, just to be annoying. The mem here, however, does not lose its dagesh, so we still know that this is pronounced. Vahamalakim. One last note. Long vowels, like komets, seire, and occasionally holum, like to be in the pre-tonic syllable, that is, the syllable right before the accent syllable. When they are moved farther away from the tonic syllable, beyond where they want to be, the vowel will go away. It's said to reduce. What I mean by this is that the long vowel actually becomes a vocal schwa. Short vowels will occasionally do the same thing when their closing consonant is taken to be used, usually for a suffix. This is where unchangeably long vowels are important, because unchangeably long vowels will not change. They will not reduce. The examples at the bottom of the page give examples and demonstrate how this takes place when the tonic syllable shifts. In the first example, a kal, which has the accent on the kal, becomes ha-a-kal team, putting the accent on the team. This makes the komets under the aleph too far away from team, actually placing the aleph and the komets in the pro-pretonic syllable, which the komets does not like. In this case, the komets reduces, becoming a compound schwa, because aleph is a guttural, so patak schwa in this example. Va-ha-a-kal team. In the second example, a kal still has the accent on kal, but this is va-a-kalu. The aleph and the komets stay where they are, but the kaf has lost its vowel, the patak, which has now become a vocal schwa. This is important to realize because this is not va-ok-lu, with a short O underneath the aleph, but still the long A, komets, va-a-ka-lu. In the third example, Torah does not change at all when we make it into a longer word and shift the accent. The holum vav after the tav remains. V'toro tav. Doesn't matter. Unchangeable vowel. It stays there. Once again, gutturals and resh are annoying and think they deserve special treatment. Not that I resent that at all. So they take their own class of schwa. Not just the simple schwa, but what we call compound schwa. These at the bottom of the page here are patak schwa, segel schwa, and kamatz hatuf schwa. A short O, the kamatz hatuf, not the long A, kametz. Compound schwas are always pronounced. Some people differentiate their pronunciation between a compound schwa and a normal schwa. I pronounce all schwas, no matter what kind, as but if you wish to pronounce these as short vowels, eh, be my guest. That's just way too much thinking for me when I read. So the word above the chart here is the word for God, Elohim or Elohim, which sound pretty much the same. The aleph refuses to take a normal schwa and instead requires a segol schwa. It still has the same pronunciation as a normal schwa and is vocalized, Elohim or Elohim. Another set of letters that you should at least know about are remembered with the acronym Skinnem Levi or Skinnem Levi. The S stands for all sibilants or S sounds, sin, shin, samek, tzadeh. The K sound is actually kof, the letter Q, not kaf, the letter K, followed by nun, mem, lamed, vav, and yod. These letters will often lose the Dagesh forte when there is a vocal schwa underneath them, which I'll introduce to you in just a moment. The vocal schwa is that colon-looking double dot thing underneath the yod. This word is vayabakshu, and you sought. There should be, and you'll just have to take my word for it at this point, a Dagesh forte in the yod. But since the schwa under the yod is vocal, the Dagesh has dropped out. This doesn't always happen, but often enough to tell you about it. This will all make much more sense later, but the key thing to note here is that the patak under the vav does not lengthen, as when gutturals reject the Dagesh. Instead, the Dagesh is implied. It's there, it's just not written. Well, I know that was a lot, but it will all make sense as we move forward. Remember that long vowels like open syllables, closed syllables if accented, and typically they like to be in an open syllable next to the accent syllable. If not, the long vowel will reduce to a vocal schwa. On the other hand, short vowels prefer closed syllables, open syllables if accented. If they cannot be in a closed syllable, short vowels will reduce to a vocal schwa, or they will add a Dagesh forte to the next letter to double that consonant and so close the syllables. Remember that gutturals prefer special treatment. Feel free to watch this video until it all makes sense and to take the accompanied Quizlet, and I will see you in class.